sad. It's 100% sad. They get up, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 during the day, and they go out and they have to earn money, and they're treated bad. They eat only when they're fed by somebody else, and they never get anything for anything. They always have to return sexual favors for it. They sometimes get beaten, they get robbed, they get pushed. You know, the police abuse them, everybody abuses them.
What do you do with the money?
Somebody, I pay them that, or just give me something to eat when I need it. And I buy me some shoes or some socks, whatever I need.
How much you guys getting for tricks? You gotta be able to make some bucks.
We gotta get more than $5. Trying to get some money, but when we need it bad. Get $20 for the days over.
Oh, no.
That's why I can make money, man. There's no other way.
No other way you can make money? That's true, there ain't.
Can't find no coke bottles around these days. People already tuck them all up.
I can't get it. I don't have a job.
Yeah.
Most of the kids don't want to be where they are. They don't want to engage in this lifestyle. And if you give them help, an awful lot of them, a very high percentage of them, are quite anxious either to go home or to get a job, go back to school, to live a normal, happy life. They are not into this really rotten thing because they like it. If they stay in it long enough, they develop attitudes that make it very difficult for them to do anything else. If you work here in our center and you do not develop a bad memory, you don't work here very long. The tragedies, the violence, the fact that some of the kids that come into us are killed because they cannot escape the exploitation is a very hard thing to bear. Our staff does not really last very long here.
Who's running it? I can't tell you. Why? Did they do something to you?
Something like that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Well, if they have that many kids, what's their where is it located? Is it what part of town?
I'm not sure.
But you're not going to tell me the location.
They're killing them.
If they're running
slowly,
yeah,
breaking fingers,
right,
toes, ankles,
yeah.
all you have to do is.
The youth then detailed how boys are procured and then held by the servants.
Strictly all the boys
from Houston. Closed circuit.
All the boys from Houston.
Oh no, these guys, you know, like hitchhikers that are hitchhiking in, they pick them up, give them a place to stay, and then tell them, look, you owe us some money.
All fairly young?
Very young.
What's the youngest?
About 9.
9 years old.
Well, this is one little kid's little
But they have them all the way up to what, 18, 20? 21. Now, do they provide y'all with protection? I mean, are they protected?
Well, Vice doesn't touch them.
But you don't know why? Or do you know why?
I don't know why. All I know is Vice doesn't touch them.
Do they teach the kids how to perform sexually at this place? Do they teach them how to do it? I mean, like...
Well, usually they get some...
The train. What happens if a kid won't perform? Do they kind of get down on him pretty heavy?
No, they just get rid of him.
Well, how do they keep him quiet? You know, so he won't talk.
Well, they usually have an example. Once someone break a finger or two.
Have they done that in front of you?
Yeah, they've done it a couple of times. Some John, you know, like didn't pay up. One time they took him into the room and they broke his finger. One at a time.
Boys told our undercover investigator, a former drug rehabilitation counselor and sex therapist, that they are not proud of what they do. You don't live at home?
I go home once in a while.
Your mother know you do that? She didn't care?
She don't like me come around the house too much. I found if I do that, she don't like me come around too much.
Why not?
She says she just don't like her son being hustling and stuff like that.
She knows you're hustling?
Yeah.
This dude wanted to take some pictures of me for $100 tonight. You know, stuff like that. This is stupid stuff.
Well, yeah? Why do you say it's stupid? You're doing it.
Well, hey, you gotta live. I'm ashamed of it, too.
You're ashamed of it?
Sure.
Why?
Hey, man, I wasn't brought up this way.
What kind of family are you from?
I had real nice people. I mean, you know, it was me that messed up.
Your parents know what you're doing?
Oh, no. I'd never let them know. God. Hell, I've heard them too many ways already.
Well, the reason I'm here is, when I was 13 years, well, I was 10 years old when my mom got remarried. And when she did, this thing she married came into my room and raped me. And they had to take me to the hospital and put 3 stitches in me.
That's when you were 10?
Yeah.
So then what happened? How'd you end up leaving home?
When I turned 13, I just, packed up my bags and trucked on.
What do your parents think you're doing, or what's your mother think you're doing then?
I don't know what they think. I haven't written them a letter since year before last.
They don't care, you don't think?
No.
This boy was partially a victim of poverty. On the streets, though, you find boys from varied backgrounds. One 15-year-old from a wealthy family tells of being cast out because he was failing in school. His parents are divorced. Neither his father nor his mother wants to care for him. He started out as a prostitute when he was 12.
You gonna keep hustling with you?
Yeah, I have to. I mean, where's a 15-year-old going to get a job, man? It isn't too likely.
What do you think about what you do? You proud of it?
No. I think disgusting, revolting,
Why do something that's disgusting and revolting?
Well, you gotta eat and you gotta sleep,
Well, the worst they could do is kill me,
Well, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, aren't you worried about that? Don't you value your living?
No, right now I don't.
You don't value your life?
Not really.
You don't want to stay alive?
I mean, I want to stay alive and all, but, if I die, what the I mean, it can't be much worse.
I know. I mean, is it that bad out there? Don't you look forward to the day when you get a good job?
Yeah, but that's all I can do is look forward, Live each day as it comes.
So you're really not happy, are you?
No. I'd much rather be at home,
Well, down in Houston, they have streets where they hustle, which you don't find in some other cities, right?
That's right.
What kind of now? This is apparently these are the entrepreneurs, as the D.C. guy talked about, right?
These are cold little kids looking for money to buy some food, money to get a room, hopefully with some privacy, with somebody if they can't get any privacy. To put it in the bluntest terms, at 2 in the morning, when the bars close, the boys who've had only one customer that night and need more money, or haven't had any customers at all, start bidding against each other for the favors of whatever pederasts are patrolling the street.
You've actually observed this?
Yes. Yes. That's at 2 o'clock. It lasts for about an hour, a little longer, and then some kids are left, and many of them have nowhere to go. They might have what they call a trick pad that they can go to, and I hope they get the $25 to pay the rent there the next day. I've seen them climb under cars to get shelter and warmth.
To sleep, you mean?
Yes, at 4 in the morning on this one night in November when it was cold, and the boys had T-shirts on, not jackets, and they didn't have jackets.
These are mostly destitute, well, you might say street people.
Well, they might come from well-to-do homes, Doug, but when they're gone for a few months, they're poor.
Down and out.
They are now poor. A rough count that I made was that there are 400 kids in an area of half a square mile.
Is there any...
Now, let me finish the story. Sure. The police then came and rounded them up in vans, and I heard over police radio that their count was that there were 400 kids. And they drove them to a suburb of Houston called Pasadena and let them out.
Why did they do that?
They did it because if they formally arrested them, they would have had to book them and put them someplace, and they had no room for them. If they had room for them, they couldn't have protected them from other people in the jails. They didn't have the heart to arrest them. Technically, they arrested them by taking them into custody, but they didn't have the heart to do any more. They wanted to clean up the street because this was the week before the national election in 1980. They had no place to find shelter for them because there were only 42 beds in the whole city, and some of those were questionable as to their safety for the boys. So they took them for a ride and let them out. They didn't have anything else to do.
Tom, is race a factor here, and if so, in what degree, what extent?
It's a factor in a surprising way, Frank. We've already mentioned, but maybe not emphatically enough, that these kids are poor. Once they're out on the street, even if they come from middle-class families, they become poor. But overwhelmingly, the runaway kids are from poor families, from struggling families. You would assume then that they would be heavily minority kids. This isn't the case. Overwhelmingly, the kids who are throwaways, runaways, who hit the streets and work in the life are white. Part of the reason is that the market among the well-to-do men for boys is a white market. The men want white kids. They don't want Chicanos. They don't want black kids. They want white kids, fair kids, Nordic-looking kids, the ideal type.
What about wealthy black or Chicano males?
They also tend to prefer white kids. You can find in what's called the Farm League, in the parks, on the streets, at the curbs, totally on their own, living hand to mouth, roughing it. You can find minority kids, but they have a hard time. They have a hard time getting customers. Mostly they get employed in the dark, literally. They work in the cubicles in the magazine stores where their customers won't see them. There's an ugly term called glory hole for the kind of thing that happens in the cubicles. I think the name is suggestive enough itself. What it means that the customer doesn't have to see the person who's servicing him, and then the person who's getting the service fantasizes that the little boy is blonde and blue-eyed and white.
Well, what about Atlanta then? You were talking in the previous program about this being the situation with the Atlanta kids.
Well, I think there are indications, as I said, that the kids there are hustlers. They are hustlers who are out working to help their families. They are not throwaways. They are not runaways. And they are in the farm circuit. They're working out of a park. They're not in the penthouses. They're not in call boy services. Black kids are out there working, and they're not getting the best trade. They're getting what is called rough trade. Men who will pay less and want more and be more likely to inflict violence as part of the price. Another thing I'd like to say here is that on the basis of what I've learned over the last 3 years, I have a feeling, it's not a firm conclusion by any means, but it's a strong feeling that there's a second reason why the kids out there caught up in this are primarily white. The first reason is that the rich men want white boys, but I think there's a second reason, and that is that poor, struggling black families are taking better care of their kids than white families are. They're not pushing them out. The boys aren't running away. They're keeping the contact with home, even if they do have to resort to this for economic reasons. And when the families find out it's happening, they accept the kids and they love them, and they don't punish them, reject them, and throw them out.
What about the kids themselves? What happens to them? Assuming they're ones that live, and can they get out of the life, and what happens to them when they do? What are they like?
In the first place, they mostly don't survive. They mostly, literally, don't live to be 20 years old. As far as I know, the best information I have is that these kids die. They waste away, they kill themselves, somebody kills them, and that's it. And we're talking about over half of the kids who make their living this way for a period don't survive adolescence. They don't become adults. Those who do have a tremendously difficult time.
Of course it does damage. It does tremendous damage to self-esteem. You have to grow up with a general bitterness towards adults, where you find with all these strangers now into your life, where you're literally being used and poured over.
Mutilated. It's not even... Damage is a quiet word for the mutilation of a child's spirit. We cannot take a 7 or 8-year-old and think that 7 or 8-year-old has the same sexual needs and drives and concepts as you and I. We have to realize that children see things differently, use material differently, and have different ways of integrating experience. Children cannot integrate anal sodomy at 8 or 9.
The fact is, it's all they know how to do. It's all they're good at. I came to know very well a 22-year-old hustler masquerading as a 16-year-old for whom friends and I were able to find a job, but it wasn't a good enough job for him. He knew the risks.